Are you ready to untangle from your past, recover from heartbreak, and revive your life? This is Soul CPR with your host, Ann Papayotti. We've all had soul-crushing experiences and lost ourselves in our pain, but there is a way out. On this podcast, Amazon best-selling author, award-winning life coach, and advice columnist Ann Papayotti helps us navigate the path from heartbreak to healing. So now, please welcome the host of Soul CPR, Ann Papayotti.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. You know, love is a universal theme, isn't it? And so, therefore, heartbreak is as well. And love can make us happy, it can make us sad, it can make us feel lost, and it can make us feel found. But finding love can be a pursuit that makes us frustrated and feeling insane sometimes, or it can also become a path to great self-discovery. So joining me today to share her personal story and to talk about the struggles of dating in the modern world is my friend Charlotte Girard. She's a mental health graduate student and the creator of Psychology Unfiltered, a motivational Instagram platform. And she's passionate about making psychology-based insights accessible and practical and helping people better understand themselves and improve their well-being. And she loves diving into conversations about personal growth, mental health, and the science behind human behavior. She's my kind of person. Charlotte, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me. So, Charlotte, I always like to share with my audience, how I know my guests and find them to be with me on the show. So I first met your beautiful mom in my Zumba classes when I first moved to the Dallas area from Montreal. And I soon found out that she was from France originally. And therefore, I talked her into being my son Christopher's French tutor to help him finish out his high school years. And as she and I became friends, as moms do, we shared about our children's lives, about their accomplishments, and also about our concerns for them. And so I eventually had the pleasure of meeting you at a luncheon with her. Yes. And I'm going to let you take it from there.
Well, the circumstances behind that luncheon were not ideal. I was recently going through a pretty tough breakup that had happened just a couple days before. Right. And in Mom's efforts to try and cheer me up, she was like, you should come to lunch with some of my girlfriends. They are going to cheer you right up. And Anne happened to be there, didn't even know that you were a relationship coach. And so it was one of those just serendipitous moments.
It was. And I was happy to be there, and we had a very in-depth conversation. We really connected right away, not only about your situation, you were open and honest, and I don't offer guidance unless asked, but I think that you had some insights there. And then we also talked about your career a little bit, because you were so insightful. I was curious what you wanted to do with your life, and you had a very stable, great job, still do. Mm-hmm. But the more we talked, I learned that actually you were interested in doing something more in alignment with what I do. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that.
So I studied psychology in undergrad. It really has always been my passion, even since high school. Really love understanding human behavior. And in college, I thought I wanted to go to grad school, be a clinical psychologist, maybe work with children. Very quickly, that didn't seem to be the right path for me. COVID hit, everything started shifting, and ended up taking an organizational leadership class.
Right.
Kind of fell in love with it, fell in love with business psych and how you can use psychology to improve leadership and teams. But my love for helping people and wanting to be a clinical psychologist or a counselor was always still somewhere in the back of my mind.
Right.
And hearing your story and how you became a coach, it was like when you were talking, I almost felt like something ignite inside of me, where I was like, wait, I can go back to this. Because it almost felt like, well, I've made my choice now. I have to stick with it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And interesting that you say it that way, because I find people do that with relationships as well. I've made my choice. Now I have to stick with it, and we stay too long. So now you are a graduate student studying
Mental health counseling.
mental health counseling. I love it. So while you're still doing, working in the business world, you're studying to go and follow that original path that you always thought you would. But in the meantime, relationships still an issue. So tell me, I know that you were seeing a therapist when I met you. You still are. You also became a coaching client of mine. Tell us a little bit about your struggles in relationships, and not just with romantic relationships, right?
So, as you previously mentioned, my family's French. We moved here to the US. And so I was raised in a French household, French customs, which always and already kind of set me apart from my peers growing up. But then add on top of the fact that we moved every 3 to 4 years.
Yes.
So I was constantly having to reinvent myself and try and adapt to the new state we were living in, especially when you're making drastic moves from the Northeast to the South. Um, and I found that throughout my childhood, I was often not included. I just felt very left out. It's been a recurring theme. And whether it was relationships or even just my surroundings, I just always felt like I had this sense of belonging that was missing.
So you experienced that with, like you said, friendships, with relationships. So how did this show up as a fear? If you named it as a fear or labeled it, what would you call it?
I really had a fear of rejection from others, and also a fear of being alone. I just so badly wanted connection because it was something that was always taken away from me.
Sure.
I feel like I would get a really good friend, and then either that friendship would end or I would move. And it was just constant, like almost the feeling of like something being taken away from me. So it really ignited this fear of rejection and fear of being alone.
Sure. So how did that show up as a behavior for you, like a pattern in relationships?
I think because it kind of had this feeling of like something being taken away from me, I almost like tried to latch on before it could get taken away from me. And so, but the problem with that is that I was latching on to the wrong people. And as soon as I thought someone could be maybe that best friend or that relationship, that boyfriend, even if they weren't the right person for me, but I thought that they could fill that like need inside of me, I would try and latch on before they could reject me or leave or somehow get taken away from me again.
Okay. So holding on, whether it's a job or a person, might have become like that theme. What about any? I know once we started working together as coach and client, you had a couple of specific aha moments or insights. You want to share some of those?
I was talking to this guy in around the holidays, and I really liked him. I think out of anybody I've ever kind of dated, this is probably the one that I really saw the most potential with and was the most excited about. Unfortunately, it ended. He was just not in a place where he was ready for a relationship. And when we had that conversation, I took it really hard. At first, I was like, again, why am I not good enough? And kind of that phrase, if he wanted to, he would. But I kind of had first the aha that if it wasn't working out, there was a reason and something better is waiting for me. But then I also started doing my own reflecting and realizing that it felt like I needed that relationship more than just wanted it.
Yeah.
And so coming at it from a place of need is not a healthy place.
That's right.
And so I realized that while he might not be ready for a relationship, I also might not be ready either. And I need to learn to be okay with being alone and getting over my fear of rejection before I can really be in a healthy relationship.
I hope everybody listening is taking notes on that healing yourself and finding out what it is that creates that need to be in a relationship is key to finding healthy, fulfilling, rewarding, mutually respectful relationships that can stand the test of time. So that was a big, big moment for you, Charlotte. And that's when we put in the show notes this, it's not you, it's me. That's the beautiful side of that. I know a lot of people use that phrase as an excuse, but those who use it for as their truth and take the time to heal and learn how to self-love, to show up as the best version of themselves before entering a relationship, they're the ones that really uh, make it work and make it work well. So anything else that you want to share that you've learned on your journey? I think for many of us, we stay on a journey of being a work in progress. And I know that in my second marriage, I wasn't fully there yet, but we had that mutual respect that we continued to learn and grow together, and we're able to communicate through that. But anything else that you've learned? What about with your friendships? What have you learned?
I think something that came from my fear of rejection in my childhood was this idea that whenever I was getting rejected, it was immediately, what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? I mean, I've had friendships, relationships with people that I wasn't very fond of
Mm-hmm.
that ended. And even when it was them ending it with me, it was immediately putting my own character into question. And I immediately started questioning everything I've ever known about myself, um, simply because they didn't want to continue
Right.
the friendship, the relationship, whatever it may be, even if I maybe wasn't that into it either. And so one of the biggest healing moments came from one of our sessions where we were analyzing a recent friendship that had ended, and I was really internalizing it, trying to understand. And you really told me that their actions were more a reflection of than of me. And
Mm-hmm.
while nobody's perfect and we can always, like you said, be on this journey of growth, there was nothing wrong with me. It
That's
just
right.
wasn't the right friendship.
That's right. And when we come from that place of neediness, we're going to attract other people who are also coming from places of insecurities and neediness as well. So negative energy actually attracts more negative energy. And so we really want to find that awareness so that we can come back to that place of self-reflection and therefore self-growth. And that's what I've really seen in you. And it's very admirable, and it's something to model for all of us, no matter our age, no matter our generation. And it's, again, when we talk about modern love versus old fashioned, we're going to get to the idiosyncrasies of modern love. But don't you hear that the issues are the same? It's old fashioned. It's the same whether you were, I was dating at Charlotte's age, and we had the same insecurities, the same fears. We fell into relationships and latched on rather than leaning in, perhaps, if we weren't already healthy and whole alone, and just wanting a relationship rather than needing one. I wholly uh, recommend and a proponent of wanting a relationship, right? We were meant for connection, wanting a relationship, but there's a balance between wanting and letting go of outcomes, right? And just allowing things to happen while also doing. So it's a big balancing act, right? Doing, which means being open for relationships to happen without trying to force them by just latching on and falling in, as Charlotte was describing. So old-fashioned problems, they're the same old thing. They're about us. I read a book years ago that said it's not him, it's me. So obviously addressing women and trying to get us to look at ourselves and truly heal ourselves before we put ourselves out there to find our partner in life. It is time for our first break. When we come back, we're going to have more with Charlotte, and we really want to talk about some of those modern dating scenarios that she can best tell us about. So don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello and welcome back to Soul CPR. I'm Ann Papayotti. I'm here with my guest, Charlotte Girard, and we are talking about modern dating and old-fashioned problems when they come into play. So when we talk about modern love, Charlotte, there are mindsets and norms that have certainly shifted since Gen Xers were young and dating, for sure. And it might be actually the only norms that you know and your generation actually have experienced. And I imagine some of them are easier in some ways and more difficult in others. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is technology and communication. So kick us off. Let's talk about it.
So, social media, communications, our phones, it's amazing. We can talk to people across the world. Right. And it can make long distance relationships a lot easier. It can make just relationships in general a lot easier, just having ability to communicate more constantly. But it also comes with so many more problems.
Right.
And we all know in psychology the paradox of choice. And if you have too many choices, that you can get overwhelmed, stressed. But what a lot of people don't know is that the paradox of choice, the more choices you have, the less satisfied you're also going to feel with your choice. And I find that with online dating, social media, we have access to all these people that we didn't necessarily before. There's one dating app in particular that I was on where I'm not just seeing people in Dallas, I was seeing people from across the world.
Wow.
And while that's a very fun and cool opportunity to connect with people around the world, at the same time, it kind of creates this idea that like someone better could be out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as a result, with online dating, we'll meet someone, that person can be amazing and great and hit 90% of our boxes.
Mm-hmm.
But could there be someone out there? Could we find someone who is 100%? And I think it's that idea of not feeling as satisfied with our choices because we have too many.
Wow. And what about superficial connections. I imagine that happens as well.
100%. I mean, so many of the apps, you barely really know anything about the person. It's you have their height, their maybe where they went to school, maybe a highlight of what their current job is, where they live, maybe 3 prompts that kind of show someone's personality. But at the end of the day, you're really making a superficial judgment off of these criteria, off of 3 prompts and 5 pictures, and trying to decide, could this be a connection?
Right.
And I know, I mean, a lot of my couple friends have met through Hinge, and it's working out great for them. So it's not to say that it doesn't work, but I think it has caused more issues and more dissatisfaction in dating than perhaps before.
Right. I know both my nephews met their spouses on online dating apps. So I have personal testimony that it can work. But like you said, it's like, is there someone better one swipe away? I don't know. And what does that, and we're in this comparison society, right? And comparison is the thief of joy. So there's
It
this
is.
constant comparison, I would imagine. And what does that do to our mental health as well, right?
Well, I mean, if you look too at the rise of influencers, social media, TikTok, Instagram, I am seeing these just absolute gorgeous people. But then you realize, like, so many of them, a lot of influencers have now come forward and said, I have filters on. I think part of the reason why Alex Earl, who's a famous influencer, became so viral is because she was very authentic in showing her skin and being like, here's when I have a filter on, here's where I don't.
Okay.
But I think a lot of times that's not the case. And so we see kind of these unrealistic beauty standards, whether it's for men or for women. And then because we see that, we compare ourselves to that. We compare our partners to that.
Mm-hmm.
We hold people to this unrealistic standard of beauty that, again, without cosmetic surgery or filters is just not attainable.
Right. So unrealistic expectations, it's like this smorgasbord on a menu to order from. And then when you do meet them in person, is there a letdown? Because there have been filters perhaps, or there have been this or that, because there's the pressure to look so good and or to meet an expectation in the profile. And then tell me about that. Have you ever been disappointed when you met someone in person?
It's definitely happened where maybe the profile didn't match up exactly with who I was meeting. And I know I'm not alone in that from what I've heard from other people.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's only happened a couple of times, but it is a letdown. And especially too, I think what's really even more of a letdown is not when the pictures maybe don't line up, but when somebody passes for one way through their prompts and then you meet them in person and the personality isn't quite matching up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that ends up being a little bit of a letdown as well.
Okay. I understand that. Of course, for my generation, when we were your age dating, we had to be at home to receive the phone call that we were told we would receive at 8 p.m. Eventually, we had answering machines so that we didn't have to be home. And then we would save the message and rewind and replay so we could hear them. We had to meet in person to be introduced at all and to know if there was connection. And so those were, and handwritten notes and love letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was no the texting. And certainly it was more longhand, none of this shorthand things. So very different in those ways. Ghosting, breadcrumbing, some of these kind of terms, I guess still happened to us in a little bit different format, but I'm sure it's more prevalent now. So talk to me a little bit about that. How does that impact people? Because I hear those terms a lot from my clients.
I think ghosting is honestly one of the most violent things you could do to someone. in terms of social media and
Okay.
not physically.
Okay.
But because we all know that stonewalling is one of the four horsemen of divorce, and stonewalling is when you kind of completely retreat, you're not engaging in conflict, right? You would know better than I do, but ghosting is kind of the same, where you might be having a great friendship relationship with somebody, or maybe you've just been on one date, but you've been in a good amount of contact, and then all of a sudden nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
And you get no answers, you get no explanation. And so again, you're really left there wondering, what did I do wrong? Why? What happened? And I think, if you haven't even met the person yet, you haven't really talked much, and the relationship naturally fizzles out. That's different. But I think if you really have an established connection with someone and you just end it, that's so harsh. That's so hurtful to the person on the receiving end, because you just leave them with nothing, no answers. And that can really drive someone kind of crazy, for lack of a better word.
Right. Looking for those answers. So do you think it's a lack of respect, or it's just because of the ease of being behind a screen?
I think a big part of it is lack of accountability. And it's hard. I will say, I went on a date a few weeks ago, and he was a great guy. He did everything right. The connection just wasn't there. And I know that on his end, he did feel it. And he kept wanting to try and see each other again. And so I had to send him a message letting him know that I wasn't interested. And honestly, it was a really hard message to send, because I didn't want to hurt him.
Right.
He didn't do anything wrong. I knew that it's harder to send that message than to just slowly stop responding.
Okay.
But it takes accountability. Like you said, it's respect. Him and I had talked about being honest with one another. And so I just wanted him to know where I was at. And I think in the end, he really respected it rather than be left wondering.
And I think that's the key. And so even people in my generation who are back in the dating world are experiencing this, and they're struggling with it, because it gets down to rubbing against one of their values, perhaps, which is often respect. Again, going back to what Charlotte learned earlier that she shared with us, that whatever somebody says or does is about them and not about you. So don't spend your energy trying to figure out what's wrong with me. It's not. There's nothing wrong with you. It's their action is about them. So to allow it to be that comes from, that's the let them theory that's so popular right now with from Mel Brooks. But let them be who they are, but recognize it could be an avoidance of conflict, right? It could be an act of disrespect. They struggle with accountability. There could be so many different reasons for it, but recognize it is coming from their insecurity, their fear, their value system or lack thereof, not from yours. So with that, other things, I'd never heard the term benching. Do you know what that is? Benching?
I don't think I do.
I think it means putting you on the sidelines, maybe coming back and forth. That's where my head would go. Is I'm going to put you on the sideline. I'll come back every now and then and see if you're waiting for me.
We do have a lot of that. I didn't know that was the term, but that happens a lot, where we call kind of having a roster.
Oh, okay.
Where someone will have maybe 5 or so people that they're actively getting to know, and that's what they call their roster.
Okay.
And so again, it's this idea of you're almost competing against these other people to be the main player, to be the star of the show. And again, it's the comparison is the thief of joy. But when we're actively put in situations where we are kind of being compared to one another, and you're one of 5 girls that he's talking to, or you're one of 5 boys that she's talking to. How can you not compare?
Right. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So, how do you ever truly get emotionally invested with someone when you're in this kind of dating game?
It's been hard, especially with my fear of rejection
Mm-hmm.
and all that. I very much build up walls, and I've been told by guys that I'm dating sometimes I can come across as cold or aloof, which is actually not my personality at
Yeah.
all.
Right.
But I'm so scared of getting hurt that I want to see someone's intentions first. What happens though is, and what's happened in my past relationships, which we've talked about, is I was emotionally manipulated because they kind of knew what to show me and what to do to
Right.
get those walls down. And then as soon as I did, it was almost like I was hooked,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like love bombing.
Yes.
And once I was hooked, that's when they stopped pretending to be who they were, but I was still holding on to that initial idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it gets really hard of like, yes, having walls up to protect yourself can be a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it can also portray maybe coldness, aloofness, which is not what you want to portray as, which has turned certain people away from me, or it can in turn cause someone to know what to do and say exactly to kind of get those walls down, and maybe not in a good way.
Exactly. So, I like to teach fences instead of walls, where there's a gate that remains locked that has a welcome sign, but you have to go and invite them in. So again, this leaning in rather than falling in and allow people to bulldoze in. There's a whole combination here of things that go with that. It is time for our second break, but don't go far. I'll be back with Charlotte and more Soul CPR.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Thank you again for tuning in today. I'm Ann. I'm here with my friend Charlotte, and we are talking about dating in the modern world. Often has the same old-fashioned problems, meaning we got to heal ourselves first if we truly want a healthy, rewarding, fulfilling relationship. Charlotte's telling and sharing some and helping us understand some of the specific issues to the modern dating world. And, you know, some of this I'm just still really curious about, because what I find though, Charlotte, is that a lot of people still want the exact same result though. They want the committed partner. They want the courtship that leads to the long-term commitment and that leads to marriage. So there's still that old-fashioned outcome that people are looking for. Do you find that to be true?
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, I want my person.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
I'm ready to meet him. And like you said, that courtship, I mean, maybe that looks different than what it looked like 500 years ago.
Right.
But I think as women, even us more progressive, independent women still want someone who's going to court us.
Mm-hmm.
And we want that romance that we see in the movies and the books.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you for confirming that, because that's really what I hear in my practice from both my male and my female clients is regardless of the process of getting there, the same desired outcome exists. Now, when it comes to mental health, also, I think all of that you've been describing that you all go through in your process, there's a lot more anxiety in your process than there was in mine. Mental health was certainly stigmatized in my day, and I think it's much less now. And thank goodness, since there's so much more anxiety with yours. And I think there's a lot of openness in talking about it. And certainly a red flag in my day was just something at the beach to tell you not to go in the water due to the undertow or some other threat. And now you guys openly understand and talk about red flags and what to look for. So there are some things that are more readily available. And speaking of that, you have started Psychology Unfiltered on Instagram. So tell us about that, what kind of content you provide and why you started it.
Yes, so my psychology page, Psychology Unfiltered, is really about posting psychology-based insights to untangle life, to improve well-being. You know, there's a lot of self-help accounts out there and accounts that post really great motivational quotes, don't get me wrong, but I really wanted to get down to the root of the science and the research behind it. And I wanted to make it accessible, digestible. And as a benefit, I mean, I want to help people with it, but honestly, creating this account has brought me so much joy and healing in my own life.
Great. I originally, when I first saw it, I thought, I wonder if this was a school project. And I thought, what a really cool assignment to get somebody out there. But then I found out it was not. This was just your idea and that you're doing it. Did it take a lot for you to do this? I mean, is it scary to get out there in the social media world and do something like this? Or is it just like, yeah, this is just second nature for me?
It was terrifying. Never in my life did I think I wanted to be a content creator. Like I talked about those influencers. I mean, I didn't think that was ever going to be me. That would ever be my path. I initially was planning on not really ever showing my face and mostly just posting infographics and things like that. But after talking to people and realizing what people really need is they need a face, they need trust. And so I started filming these little reels every now and then. And it was so hard at first because not only do, as most people, have my own insecurities, but I was putting so much weight into, well, what are people from high school going to think? What are the people from college going to think? And, you know, everyone's always going to have something to say. You're never going to please everybody. And kind of the let them theory by Mel Robbins, if they want to talk bad about me, let them. I really had to get over that. And also, I actually have a whole post about this on my page of how to get over people's opinions of you. And one, you have to understand, like we talked about, if someone's talking negatively about other people, again, that says more about them than the people they're talking negatively about.
Absolutely.
There's more research on that on my page, but then also the spotlight effect. We think that people are talking and caring about us way more than they actually are because we all think that there's this huge spotlight above us wherever we walk. In high school, you get a pimple and you think everybody's going to notice this.
Mm-hmm.
But if everybody has the exact same thing, then no one's actually looking at you.
That's
Everyone's too busy really looking at
right.
themselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It is so true. And that's what you're describing has been that fear of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Another very common fear that most of us carry through life until we learn to let that go and free ourselves and give ourselves that peace and allow it, get out of our own way. So I love that you've done that and that you've created this, this platform and this page, and that you are using this to actually help people. There's a lot of therapy speak out there these days, right? Narcissism, the gaslighting, attachment, all these things on social media. What I love about your page is that you are doing it with the science. You're sharing it in a very, like you say, palatable, kind of digestible way. It's not overly academic. It's very, palatable. That's the right word, digestible. So we can all understand it, and yet it's not opinion. Right. So that's what I really, really love about it. So again, your generation has more awareness, but there's also more anxiety in your generation about dating. Do you think some of that might come from over analyzing? Because of when I see all this therapy speak in some of these other accounts, and they're labeling everything and everyone. Do you think they're overanalyzing rather than just experiencing relationships?
I think that's true. It's hard because on one hand, the more we're talking about it, the more people are educating themselves about narcissism or gaslighting, for example. Right. It's great to get the awareness out there, especially gaslighting is emotional abuse.
Right.
And so for someone who might be really experiencing gaslighting, learning what it is and how to get out of it, what signs might be, how to recognize it, all those things, it's so beneficial. It's probably helping so many people. But at the same time, now it's become this overused word where in someone's experience, you might say, Charlotte, you said this to me. And in my head, I might genuinely not think that I said that.
Right.
And then, so I tell you, I don't think that that's true. And now immediately you could be like, Charlotte, you're gaslighting
me. Yeah.
And it's become this overused word that now it's almost kind of doing more harm than good. Even with narcissism, I've been seeing so many videos talking about this is narcissism, and most of it isn't science-based. And we have to be really careful when we use words like gaslighting, narcissism, abuse, because they are really strong words and they have a really big impact to the people who are actually experiencing them.
Absolutely. There's a lot of what we call misinformation, which is unintended spreading of these types of words or any information that is untrue or the incorrect definition or what have you. That's misinformation. Disinformation is when it's untrue and on purposely spread. So do pay attention to the sources that you read, where you get your information, and notice what types of things they're citing and whether it is science-based or not when you're listening and viewing, whether that's the news media or anywhere else. Misinformation versus disinformation. And when you share things, be selective when you share things as well. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about is coming back around to self and recognizing that this is the most important relationship in our lives. It's something that some people find until they get a new mindset around it, they feel it's selfish to focus on self. But to self-care, to self-love, those words, they're like, oh, that's so foreign for them. But to actually learn how to do that becomes such a guiding light for navigating the dating world, right? So how difficult was it for you, or is it for you still, to focus on some kind of practice of self-love?
I'll always remember sitting in my dorm room when I was 18 and sharing a story with my mom, and my mom on the phone having to tell me, Charlotte, your heart is amazing. You are such a giving person, but you really need to learn to be more selfish.
Mm.
Because I was giving so much of myself to people, again, because of those traumas
Right.
and those hurts. I was giving so much of myself. This year, I've really learned how to practice self-care, practice self-love. It's been a really big healing journey in that needing a relationship versus wanting one.
Mhm.
And the biggest step is loving yourself first.
Mhm.
If you love yourself, you don't need a relationship because you love yourself first. But yeah, it was hard. It's been a journey since, like I said, about that 18, that conversation with my mom. I post a lot about that on my page as well. I kind of have the tagline, self-love starts here.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, a lot of people think that self-care is selfish, but really, you're actually going to improve your relationships with other people if you're loving yourself better, taking care of yourself better, adequately setting boundaries with others,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to reduce burnout. You're going to reduce how much of yourself you're giving.
Mm-hmm.
And it really actually is going to improve your relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So, how do you think people can become less focused on outcomes with other people and more focused on learning about themselves and their true desires and needs and those underserving patterns in their lives, like you recognized in yours, to improve those relationships?
Well, one, I do highly recommend therapy and or coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy and coaching are pretty different. Therapy is going to be a lot more looking at past patterns, past traumas, understanding your past and how it's brought you to where you are. While there will be a little bit about that in coaching, it's going to be a lot more of moving forward. As Anne said, I have both. I think that having both in my life has been extremely helpful. Now I know that that's not always the most accessible for everybody. So a lot of it can be like finding these accounts that are trying to post real science-based ways to improve self-love, self-care. Journaling. I know journaling is not something that a lot of people love to do, but even just kind of taking the time to just write how you're feeling. I think just taking it little steps at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Small, consistent changes will have way more impact than big, every now and then efforts.
That's right. And there's science behind journaling in helping to make those changes over time, because there's something about getting it out of our heads and onto paper that is a release and a relief. And we start seeing things differently, and we start taking control of the narrative that has possibly been controlling how we show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So know that those are great things. I know that you and I both also believe in practicing gratitude as a way to embrace what's good in our lives, and it makes those things that are not so good have less impact. That's the whole premise of positive psychology. It's not to deny that the negative or the dark side of life exists, but rather to choose to focus on what's good and light in life.
I think that brings up a really interesting conversation about toxic positivity versus optimism.
There you go. Yes, share.
Toxic positivity is kind of this idea where everything's good and nothing bad ever happens. And you hear those people where you're trying to tell them, like, this is going on in my life. I'm feeling stressed about it, upset. Oh, it's, just be positive. Everything's going to work out.
Yeah.
As you said, that's not realistic.
Mm-mm.
Life is hard. There is a dark side to life. Whereas if optimism is more the idea that, good can happen, things can change, and in the hard times.
Yeah. It just helps to find that positive. I often use the image of a long stem rose.
Mm-hmm.
The thorns exist, but so does the blossom. They're both there. You get to choose which you're going to focus your gaze on. And, I'm going to focus on the bloom. It's time now for our third and final break, but don't go far. I'll be back with Charlotte and more Soul CPR.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
And we're back. I just wanted to ask Charlotte a question of something. I think I've heard it on television and I really don't know what it is, so I'm hoping she does. Charlotte, do you know what is a situationship?
I do. A situationship is usually a sexual relationship in which there is no clear commitment or labels.
Okay.
A lot of times, however, one of the people in the relationship does want a commitment or a clear label, and the other person does not.
Okay. There, you heard it here. What a situationship is. I had no idea. Is that even an option on some of the platforms where you put, I'm in a relationship or a situationship? Is it an option?
I don't know that looking for a situationship is an option, but there are a lot of clues sometimes where you can understand that that's what someone's looking for.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Well, I also want to know what your career plans are once you graduate from your master's program. Do you know how exactly you want to go into the field of psychology?
So I definitely want to be a mental health counselor.
Okay.
Like I said, initially was drawn towards working with children. Mm-hmm. I wanted to help kids kind of maybe who didn't have that sense of belonging as I did. But as I've grown and as I'm going through this program, I'm really actually noticing that 20 to 24-year-olds are probably in one of the most turbulent times of their life. They had to create a new age group for it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called emerging adults, whereas of before it was just kind of all encapsulated into young adulthood. Mm-hmm. But it's really that transition from being kind of a teenager to now adulthood. Mm-hmm. And it's such a difficult time in our lives. Yeah. And I'm really drawn to helping young adults, young emerging adults kind of navigate that time in their lives.
I absolutely love that, especially since I have 2 sons in that age range, and I can imagine. So, well, thank you. I know that you'll be amazing at that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you had a key takeaway for our audience today from our conversations in general, what would you want to leave them with from today?
I would really want to leave them with, you have to first heal your past to be able to move forward in healthy relationships. Otherwise, you're going to repeat a cycle of unhealthy behaviors in your friendships, your romantic relationships. But also, if someone's acting a certain way towards you, don't internalize that. It says more about them than it does you.
Well said. And that really is the C, the P, and the R in Soul CPR. Connect the dots so you get the picture of the past so that you can pinpoint the pain that's keeping you stuck in the present, patterns that keep repeating themselves. And then R, recover your truth to revive your life. And for those who want to follow you and connect with you, where would you like to direct them?
Please follow me at psychology_unfiltered. You can find my personal Instagram there as well. Would love to answer any questions you might have. Always open to having conversations. And if there's anything you want to see posted, happy to field that as well.
Awesome. Dan, I know that will be in the show notes. Do you have that to be able to put on screen? If you do, please do. If not, it will be in the show notes. And Charlotte, I thank you for joining me today on this episode of Soul CPR.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And thank you for sharing your personal story and your perspective on modern dating. And I know everyone listening joins me in wishing you all the best in your future endeavors. As we conclude this episode of Soul CPR, Healing Out Loud, remember that healing is not a linear journey. It is a process of profound transformation. And if today's episode resonated with you, please share this podcast with those who may need a lifeline of their own. Subscribe, rate, and leave a review to help us reach more hearts. Connect with me through my website at skyviewcoaching.com or on social media at Facebook at Skyview Coaching. And on all the other platforms, it's at Ann Papayotti. There's my QR code on screen. You can scan that if you're viewing, or you can go to skyviewcoaching.com if you're listening. And let me know your thoughts and your stories, just like Charlotte's asking. You can do the same for her, please. And we'll explore new topics in the future. And I'll have Charlotte back as a guest in the future, I have no doubt. And until next time, we both hope that you will find strength in your vulnerability and courage in your journey. We thank you for listening. Breathe deeply, love openly, and live soulfully. Good day.
This has been Soul CPR with host Ann Papayotti. Breathe life back into your spirit with each episode, where she and special guests explore the relationships that hurt us and discover that healing can only begin with you. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.